Hi, and welcome back to another episode in the series of the Check-In podcast, where we're talking about well-being at work, at school, and at home. In this series, we're talking with leaders, educators, community builders, and people who are trying to create cultures of care, compassion, and connection where they work and live. Our next guest is Mr. Dean Benard. Dean, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me. Pleasure.
Dean, why don't you tell the people that are watching a little bit about who you are?
Sure. So again, Dean Benard, my company Benard and Associates has been involved in the area of investigations and conflict resolution for the last 20 years. And we see a lot of people in the work that we do who are struggling. We see a lot of not well-being within workplaces in many of the cases that we involve ourselves in. And so it's been something that's been a bit of a concern we've had. And we're very happy to be here and sort of I'm happy to offer my thoughts on some of these areas of how we can make workplaces a little bit more friendly and less onerous, if you will.
Awesome. So let's right out of the chute then. Our first question is, what does well-being at work mean to you?
I love this question because I've evolved quite a lot over the years. And I used to think that well-being at work was a factor of resilience, being able to take on more and more, maintain my performance, maintain my edge. And over the course of time, I realized that I was confusing resilience with tolerance. And that, over the years, I myself have found that, it's not been about me being resilient. It's about me being tolerant, being able to take more and take more and take more, pushing myself down and not being able to get back to that baseline. Resilience is being able to get back to the baseline. And I found that I couldn't do that. And I needed to start taking a different approach. I think that we're discovering now that, to be resilient, we need help, we need support from those around us, whether it's family, employers, etc. So my thoughts about it has really evolved quite a bit over the last number of years. Okay.
And can you share one thing that your organization does, big or small, that supports mental health in the workplace?
Well, it's funny. I think it starts by treating people like adults. We hear all kinds of issues with employers and their employees having conflict and having issues, and a lot of times there's a lack of trust. There's a lack of ability for the employer to just let the employee do what they've been hired to do and trust that they're going to do the right thing. So that's something that I've worked on over the years is really being able to instill trust, and doing so is treating people like the adults that they are. They know what their role is, and let's find that mix together when it comes to things like workload. And I mean, we've done a lot of other things too. We have wellness accounts. We've created a wellness account so people have a dedicated fund to put towards things that help them, personal things that they can engage in, and they get to choose what those things are rather than us imposing on them. Well, we're going to put a gym in the office, or we're going to have ice cream every afternoon, or, those are sort of, those can be nice things, but we think it's about treating people like the adults they are and letting them decide what's best for them and what they need. And I think that's how they can achieve that wellness in their workplace more than anything that we just impose on them.
Mm-hmm. I think that lends itself to open communication.
Yeah.
From both sides. Right.
Absolutely.
So what's one challenge that you faced as a leader when it comes to supporting your team's mental health or well-being?
I think the biggest one has been, and it's been workload. We're a small business, and so we don't like to say no when work comes in the door, and someone's got to do that work. And so it's trying to find an ability to manage workload for people, recognizing the work we do is heavy. Like we're investigating. I mean, investigators, I always say, they never meet anybody who's terribly happy to see them. It's a complainant who's unhappy because they have a complaint. It's a witness who doesn't want to be involved, or it's a person responding to a complaint that they really don't want to respond to or don't want anything to do with. So, they have a lot of conflict just inherent in the communications they have every day. So when they have a lot of that and their workload gets high, they can burn out. And so I think that's been our biggest challenge, is trying to keep the workload reasonable, so that our investigators can, and our mediators, they're in the same boat, can navigate things in a way that that doesn't become overwhelming.
And I know we've talked about, other organizations, team members. The thing that we often leave behind is, when we're talking about total well-being, is ourselves. So how does Dean Benard recharge the batteries?
That's a good question. I think I've not always done a good job of it, if I'm being honest. I run 3 different companies. I've talked about the one. I have 2 other companies that I started recently. And life, speaking of workload, life, it can get pretty rough. For me, I tend to look for that physical release. So, I'm very physically active. I'm engaged in boxing and various other sports to try and keep myself active. I try to give myself a physical break each day instead of sitting at the desk. All of this helps me to get to that sort of proper state that I need to be in, that state of mind. I find that if I let myself be affected negatively, then I'm not going to it's not going to reflect well on how I communicate with my team, and they're going to see it. And if they start to see me, getting down or struggling, or, if I'm complaining about things, it isn't going to help them. So, for me, it really is about that release. I do journaling. I do a number of different things. I journal every day to collect my thoughts. I journal at the beginning of the day and the end of the day. I have a bit of a wind down routine at night to try and make sure that I'm getting my sleep. I think all of these things, there's so many things that play a role between diet, exercise, and being able to release the things that will nag at us and make it difficult to have that recovery. It really is about being able to recover. Work is work. It always will be. And so we have to recover from work so we can do it again the next day. And these are the kinds of things I do to help me.
Awesome. And what advice would you give other leaders who want to create a culture of care where they work?
Well, again, I think it does start with the leader. So you have to be I forget who said it. I want to say maybe it was Gandhi who said you have to be the change you want to see. Although I may be misquoting that, but regardless, I think you do need to be the change you want to see. So you have to reflect it in what you do and how you deal with people, maintaining calm, even in moments of crisis, being that calm influence on people when they're concerned about things. That is the starting point. And then from there, sure, like you can do all the things I've talked about, treating people like adults, having wellness programs, giving people options, being open to be able to have conversations with people about whether they're struggling. So I think all of these are things that it really does start with the leader, role modeling that way of being, and speaking openly about it, making sure that people understand that this is a priority. And we look at a lot of things in business, especially when you're a small business. You look at the bottom line. Okay, are we profitable? Do we have enough business? Or, can we pay our bills? Can we make payroll? We worry about all of those things. And we have key performance indicators that we have around all of that. Well, I think that a positive workplace culture needs to be in and of itself a key performance indicator. And we have to learn how to measure it. And we measure it by getting feedback from people, anything we can do to ensure that this is something that's put as high on the priority list as anything else.
Yeah, thank you. I've always been a fan of the analogy that, anyone can sail a boat in calm waters. And the leaders that I remember are the ones that, when something hit the fan, there was an emergency crisis, what have you, it was those leaders that remained the same.
Yeah.
And those are the ones I take with me, the lessons that I learned there personally, and then to kind of finish off the sailing one, I went to a friend of mine has a boat, and I was talking to one of the neighbors on the next slip over, and he's a sailor. So apparently there's sailors, and then there's a motorboat kind of crowd, right?
Right.
And So I was just asking, 'cause I'm just fascinated with it. And he said, "Oh, I can teach you how to sail in 20 minutes, and it'll take the rest of your life to learn how to master it." You know, and I'm like, yeah, I like that kind of thing, right? So we're always, we should always be looking to learn and grow and support, and if we do it in all three phases, like at home, at school, at work, I think we're all better off.
Oh,
So,
100%.
so if so the day that you kind of hang up the investigation glasses and all that kind of stuff, right? How would you like to be remembered as a leader?
I've always wanted to be and strive to be that, I didn't coin this term, but a servant leader. I've often used, it's funny, you think about, this is going to tell you how much of a geek I can be at times, but think about Star Trek. I'm not talking the newest Star Trek. I'm talking way back with Captain Kirk.
Mm-hmm.
Star Trek, Captain Kirk himself really often never had the answers. He surrounded himself with people who gave him options. And then he took those options, and by empowering those people to have an opinion, and by empowering those people to be included in the conversation, he came to the right answer. And I think that as a leader, I want to be that guy who is a servant leader. It's like, I give you what you need so you can be successful. And if you're successful, I'm successful. It's a flow that goes back and forth. So I would like people to remember me as the leader who gave them what they needed, who was the true servant leader, and helped them to be successful so that we all win.
I love that, sir. All right. So final question. What gives you hope for the future of leadership and workplace well-being?
I think when I see people, like Simon Sinek, for example, the people who are out there promoting a lot of the more positive cultures and the more positive ways of reflecting on things, what I'm seeing is a trend. It's a movement that seems to be happening where, first, I think people who are on, employees, to just blanket that, they're not as willing to tolerate what many of us who are at the closer to the twilight of our careers were willing to tolerate, or not even willing, but felt we had no choice but to tolerate. And I think that because people expect more of their leaders, and there's so much information out there to help leaders be better, I think those two things together are going to lead to enhanced workplace well-being, coupled with all of the unique programs that are out there as well that employers can take advantage of. I remember when I first started working, there was no such thing as EAP, for example, which is a very simple thing, but it just didn't exist. And now EAP, there's all kinds of insurers that are looking at ways of enhancing and finding ways to bridge the gap between EAP and people going on leaves. There's a lot of effort being undertaken in so many different places to enhance workplace well-being. And I think leaders are really starting to understand that healthy, well-adapted, people who are comfortable, they feel psychologically safe in their workplace, are always going to be better employees. They're going to do better work. They're going to be more productive. So it's something that we're all learning now is the place to invest our money and our time and our resources. And as we do that, I think we can go nowhere but to a better place.
Awesome. That's very well said. I thank you so much for that. Dean, thank you for joining us on this quick chat with a lot of information. I appreciate your insights and your advice, and wish you nothing but success in the future, sir.
Well, thank you, Nelson. I appreciate the invitation, and same to you.